Yeah, there's pain involved now, so like, and there's more pain now. While I was watching that, like, I don't know how to approach such a thing. I don't want to be in pain, but there's no need for it. I'm just saying that, like, the kind of things that have happened and how far back they go. No, I mean, this is like it's a safe topic. I just don't even want to be on this thing now that I know. But this is one of those things. Jotting down non-linear things, like, it's something I would like to help with anyway. But I mean, no. It would go, but I'm saying these things go back like several days sometimes in the unified field. It's great that it's benevolent, but I know I wanted to stay off this thing. It's hard to, the holiday season's coming up. Like, it would, here's something like not to be a good cheer about, but also because it's not reported anywhere in a way that's like realistic. Here's the thing. It doesn't come. First of all, it's only on, and we all, our media system jumps from thing to thing to thing. Okay, one of the things about this, like, what happens, or what, like, the young, let's see, wanted to help young people who, like, or either like heart in the right place, didn't, but like, we don't know what, I don't know what young people are perceiving. Here's the thing, like, someone did mention at one point, like, geez, like, they really are. Most young, like, I imagine, was like, young people don't like really imagine that, like, there wouldn't, like, a president introduce healthcare, and, like, like, then it, like, there won't be any healthcare, like, it fails or something, like, whatever happens with that, like, will really, like, traumatize a lot of people who are like, what do you mean, like, who don't know how our country runs, who don't know, like, we sort of, like, lost control of the country a long time ago. Like, that'll be there, like, whatever happens with healthcare, like, since it's positive, like, probably just saying, oh, yeah, who wouldn't want there to be healthcare? Like, all civilized countries had it, been to Europe, everyone's healthcare there. How could it fail? They find out who owns our society, and, like, why things, like, that make, like, sense. It would be very traumatic to young people. I imagine, here's here's what's happening now. By the way, the last time some portion of healthcare, all civilized societies have it, okay? All serious political people believe it. It's like a necessity in this way for a century that we go to civilization. Here's the thing: the last time it went up, the last time that it was, like, going up to the Supreme Court, like, that it might be deemed unconstitutional, I'll tell you what happened. Those who own the media corporations just blacked out the news. So, going to the Supreme Court, all of a sudden, like, some kind of, like, incident of, that's emotionally charged about, like, racial issues or something, just blocked out the TV. We didn't find out what had happened. Okay, now it's heading back to the Supreme Court. What's going on now? Well, if you just heard it in these split-second things that come over TV, right, what you get the impression of is, like, oh, I don't know, like, religious groups who are, like, pro-life, or, like, bringing that portion of of the healthcare law that, like, mandates that corporations provide, like, coverage for contraception, like, like, it's not reported as alarming because that sounds like religious groups are doing such a thing, and, like, but even no matter what, well, it's not, what if that was on. Here's the thing, like, that, but it's not, certainly I don't know what people know. But I know people don't actually know how who own what it means that our society's owned. That is, it's not. We lost control a long time ago to other things, like we talked about British banks and things. But as far as other things, no, the country is owned. Okay, it's owned. Okay, so here's the situation. Like, with this, it's a good example of, like, how it's not, nothing's presented on our, like, media system in a way that would tell you what's actually happening, and, like, but I'm saying, a lot of, if this kind of thing happens, like, really frightening, like, lesson for people who, like, don't know how, don't know what's happened to our country. Here's the thing, okay, this isn't like religion. It isn't like groups of religious people, like, somehow bringing the issue of do corporations cover contraception. Actually, what's happening is, like, a group of, like, 40 incredibly large corporations, okay? It's not that they don't have the money to cover contraception. There are corporations that, like, at the top hold, like, extremist religious views. Okay, all those corporations, they brought it to the federal courts that it shouldn't, cover. It shouldn't. The corporations would have to provide contraception coverage. Okay, now you're changing the channel. I don't know what to do, and it's like this, and I'm in pain. It may taste like I'm in pain, but that would make sense. Given that like you no longer control your country, but like, and it's not just like scams on the public. This one's a good example of how it really functions. When groups of a large group of corporations at the top, they have extremist religious views, right? They're taking something like they could cover contraception. Like, what's the, oh, I guess they have these religious views. No. They're using that. First they bring it to the federal courts, then they appeal it. Now it's up to the Supreme Court. Here's what's going. That's not like an esteemed court of like the people that we had the Supreme Court thought out by the founders based on an educated population and like the people in control. No. At this time, you can assume when 40 large corporations bring a portion of the healthcare law that has to do with contraception up to the court, okay, they can certainly rent out or already own some of the justices with whom they like play golf and stuff. They have lots of rooms to hang out. Now, when you have that much money, the human nature is like that. And besides, like the way the media, the fact that the public doesn't live in reality, you can assume the owners and the Supreme Court justices they work with and like give large. You really can buy anybody, but certainly when 40 corporations get together, right? This is getting a contraception issue that 40 corporations are bringing to the Supreme Court. They'll rent out some justices, and this will be how like they begin to like this would be the time to like when corporations with that much money who are the dominant institution bring something up to their friends who are the Supreme Court, right? This is how Roe versus Wade would be overturned. It's not religious groups that would be done. No. It's corporations doing it, and they're claiming it infringes on their religious freedom. Once the religious freedom to limit, something to do with reproductive rights gets to the Supreme Court where their friends are, that's how they could repeal Roe versus Wade. If people were to find out that actually when Roe versus Wade gets like overturned and you can't girls living in the street and stuff who get raped can't get an abortion, okay? And when they find out like the secret that like no, it's not just like wacko like religious people or something. No, the corporations did it. The corporations got Roe versus Wade repealed. That'll be a very frightening moment, but remember, every time something like this comes up, it's blocked out by a bunch of other news items about all kinds of things, like the knockout game. You've seen it, right when something like that's happening, like, oh man, there's something called the knockout game. I think my buddies and I played a game like that. Punch someone or run away. That's given equal time to something like this. Young people find out, no, it wasn't just people handing out pro-life literature that could do such a thing. 40 corporations got together and got Roe versus Wade overturned. That's how our society functions when we no longer have any control over it. And remember, people who sit on the Supreme Court and stuff, they have a very sadistic, cynical attitude because the population is filled with a mass of slobs who don't live in reality. And certainly, if you're friends enough of looking from there, you can be sure Supreme Court justices and the corporations that buy them from time to time have a very cynical view of the sort of slobs who live in our country. Okay, watch Roe versus Wade get overturned, and everyone will find out how the country runs and who owns it and what else they own. Democratic forms that don't function, like the Congress, and then Supreme Court justices that are owned. And as that's happening, the media is blocked out with oh my God, there's a game where teenagers punch people out. Let's get and it's racially charged. This should take up enough news that you don't know what's happening. That'll be all. I don't plan this thing.